Hi, and welcome to my channel, Laura's Library Card. So I'm here today with Nicole from See Nicole Read, or See Sally Read, and I am a witch. You can't tell that I have a shit ton of glitter on my eyes, but I do. And we are dressed up because we read a Halloweeny themed novella, and tonight will be our discussion on that novella. We read Mating the Huntress by Talia Hibbert. So, um, thank you for joining me, Nicole. Do you want me to give a quick summary?
Yeah, go ahead. Give us a summary. Hi, Kitty.
Bye,
Fitting
Kitty.
because you're a witch.
That was my familiar. Okay, so a summary of Mating the Huntress. This book is a fated mates novella romance, shifter romance. So our main hero is Luke. He's a werewolf, and he, at the start of the novel, catches scent of his mate, his one true mate, and he tracks her down, and that is our heroine, our main female character. Her name is Chastity, and she comes from a big family of werewolf hunters. She is training and has been training her whole life to be a huntress of werewolves. I don't think it's other shifters. I think it's just werewolves. So she recognizes Luke for what he is as soon as he enters the cafe, but for some reason, she doesn't kill him. She's intrigued. She wants to learn more. So this is their romance, sort of forbidden love, but fated mates, and how they fall in love, and how a huntress of a werewolf can potentially fall in love with a werewolf. Did I miss anything?
I think so. I think if we're going to talk spoilers,
We will.
okay,
I mean, do you want to just dive right into that part?
well, I'm going to say we do know why she doesn't immediately kill him or hunt him immediately, like the very first day that he comes into the cafe, because there's sort of an interesting spin on her birth.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
that a witch came to her parents in the hospital when she was born and said that she couldn't hunt because her first kill would also rip her own heart out.
Right.
So that sort of feeds into the like fated mates that you were talking about, that they're like it's her destiny for them to end up with each other. So she has been training and she has all the skills to be a hunter, but she is not a hunter.
Because her parents have been trying to protect her this whole
Correct.
time.
Yes.
Right. Thank you for adding that part.
You're so welcome.
So, have you read fated mates tropes before? Do you like this trope? Do you not like it?
I have not, but
Oh.
I did like it. I do sort of like that idea of like your destiny is set, and once you find your mate, or if we're not talking supernatural, once you find your like other half,
Mm-hmm.
like that's it. You can't do anything about it because it's fated, it's destined. I do like that. And I would definitely read like a fated mates again.
Yeah. I feel like this trope is very popular amongst paranormal romances. I feel like that is maybe the most popular amongst paranormal romances, probably of all the tropes that exist. Unless maybe like alpha male is a trope. But yeah, usually that's the conflict in a paranormal romance, is that the supernatural creature, if it's with like a human, the supernatural creature like is pulled toward this human or falls for this human even though it's forbidden, and it's because it's like fated and they were destined to be together in the first place. I definitely feel like this is a trope amongst paranormal and vampires and stuff too, but I feel like I personally associate it most strongly with shifter romances. So I've read this trope a number of times, and I felt like it was handled really well in this book because Luke knows that they're destined to be together, and he knows that they're like the perfect half for each other, that they're the other soulmate. But he still is very like wants her to come to him of her own volition. He won't mate her until she's ready. He wants her consent and her desire for him primarily.
And at the same time, he doesn't try to diminish the fact that she's like a very strong woman. Like
Yes.
like you said, he wants her to come to wanting to be his mate instead of him like forcing her or leading her to that. Because she's like an alpha female.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I am. So, do you have much experience reading paranormal romance? I guess not.
I don't have too much actually. Not too much under my belt, no.
But did you like this paranormal romance?
I did like it, definitely. And this was also my first book by Talia Hibbert.
Mm-hmm.
And I know she wrote the other ones that you really liked. Danny Brown?
Yes. The first one is Get a Life, Chloe Brown, and I'm currently reading Take a Hint, Danny Brown. So yeah, they're sisters, and there's a third sister named Evie. I think that book just came out or is about to come out. Each book follows a sister and that sister's like love story. And yeah, Get a Life, Chloe Brown was my first Talia Hibbert, and I really, really, really loved it. And then this was my second. Mating the Huntress was technically my second because I hadn't quite started Danny's story yet. But I'm really loving this author. I felt like there's a lot of humor in everything that I've read by her. And so
yes,
I like that.
Very humorous and very light.
Yeah.
Regardless of like the hunting action that was going on. There was still plenty of humor.
Did you feel like that worked well, that there was humor despite a werewolf and like stabbing and like, I gotta hunt him down kind of sentiment happening?
I thought it was perfect. And it was sort of a good, because it is a short story. So we don't have it's a novella. We don't have a lot of world building. We just have like little snippets of what their reality's like. So I think that humor really helped to keep it quick and keep it going. And kind of not let you get too deep into the story because it had to keep going because it's short.
Yeah. Have you read very many novellas?
I've only read novellas that are like snippets of an already established series. Same. Where I think it said this was like the Something Mates book 1, but as far as I could tell, there wasn't a book 2.
Yeah. I think in the acknowledgments or something, I could have sworn I read in the acknowledgments or in like a note to the reader or something that it said that basically Talia Hibbert wrote that she had written a holiday short story a couple years ago, and she loved it. I think it was like a Christmas themed something. And so she really wanted, show everybody your Tumblr.
Okay, wait, let me make sure I have the front. So can you see it? It's sort of,
I put a spell on you.
Yeah, and then I'll pull back. Ooh. And it's like textured 3D. It's supposed to look like a bubbling cauldron.
It does. I think it looks really cool.
Thanks. I love it. It's really cute.
It is very thematic.
I'm going to have a hard time putting it away November 1st. Maybe it won't.
Let it linger a couple weeks. So yeah, I've read novellas, and I think that what I was saying was that Talia Hibbert, I think, said she wrote a short story or a novella that was like holiday themed a couple years ago, and it really like broke her out of her writing funk, and she really enjoyed the experience, and it sort of jump started her, and so she wanted to do that again and chose Halloween this time. So she kind of wrote a short story, but I've heard that also this is going to continue into a bigger series. I don't know if this is a novella that's 0.5 to the start of a bunch of books, or if it will be a series of novellas. But you're right, there was not a lot of opportunity for world building in this shortened story. Do you think that hampered it?
No, I don't think it hampered it. I definitely wanted to know more, like how like it didn't seem to me like at least she wasn't too familiar with like the difference between a shifter and a were,
right?
And that her family was hunting him because they thought he was a werewolf,
right?
And she said that like lore had sort of been lost through the generations. I think she said that. So I kind of wanted to know more, like, then why are you still doing it? Like, if you guys don't have all the info and don't know why you're doing it, why are you doing it? Like, I just had questions like that, but it didn't bother me. I wanted to know more, but it didn't bother me that I didn't know more. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah,
anything
no,
take away from the story.
I agree with that. That's sort of been my biggest frustrations with novellas in the past, personally, is that I tend to get very sucked into the stories I read, sucked into the characters I read, and so and I want to see good development and story progression. So I frequently feel like the romance is rushed in a novella, or that or it's sort of, I don't want to say superficial, but like we just didn't get the time to like sit and stew with the characters. But I think that the fated mates trope worked well in this novella setting because the story opens without having to bother with Luke developing feelings. Like Luke already was there. He's like, this is my mate. I'm gonna love her. It doesn't matter that I don't love her yet. I'm gonna love her. So like we're destined to be together. There was no like should we, shouldn't we on both sides. It was just Luke was already there and ready, and then like we just had to develop Chastity's feelings. So to some extent, like it worked because the novella only had to work on Chastity's feelings instead of trying to develop both of them to meet, at the same point.
Right.
But yeah, I generally I'm a little underwhelmed by most novellas that I read.
Well, like I've said, typically the novellas that I've read are only parts of other stories that already have like novels or other parts that you already know a lot of that backdrop information. And this is just sort of like a little side story.
Yeah.
That you don't need all that building in that novella. But like, yeah.
But
Like I could see, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, like, I agree with you when you were talking about wanting to know more about her family and the history of her family and the hunters and what information they have, because yeah, her family, it said that a couple generations ago or within the last 70 years or something, the family's like book of lore was lost, or the family lore was lost. Someone else actually through I'm part of a Discord group that picked this book actually for October, so there's been a little bit of discussion happening, and that was part of the reason why I wanted to do it, is because I wanted to participate in that discussion. But also I loved it so much that I was like, Nicole, you have to read this. And I think that you liked it too, so
I did, because I told you I'm going to put it off for the weekend. And then it was the night of the second presidential debate. I was like, well, I already finished it because I was avoiding the debate. So
yes, and it's quick and like
an hour. Yeah,
right, and if you like it, you're more likely to like go right through it.
right.
Someone in that Discord said that the loss of okay, so she said, I'm actually just going to like read it because it was very eloquent. She said, the part about the family having lost their knowledge was so interesting. It can be read a lot of ways, one being the loss of cultural knowledge in the African diaspora. And if there are more books, I can't wait to see what we learn about the huntresses and their true relationship with the wares. And I felt like that was a really good connection to make. I think Chastity and her family were African American or darker skinned. We didn't really have time to like go into that, but this other person in the Discord made that parallel between the loss of what past generations used to know, or what past generations cultures were present. And I thought that was a really cool connection that I hadn't really made.
And it would be interesting to see how they got away from that, or how it
Right.
got lost. I agree, definitely.
Yeah, and that second sentence that she said was, I really can't wait to find out what the huntress's like true relationship with werewolves are. As if somewhere over generations, the like message of like huntresses belong with werewolves might have gotten garbled into huntresses, like, not huntresses, but like have evolved into fighting
Well,
them. You know what I mean?
like, did they belong with wares or did they belong with shifters? Because there was
Right. Like
right.
maybe like, well, Luke talked about like the difference between a were and like a
Right, that just
rabid
came back to me. Yeah.
were. Yeah. And so it's like a huntresses might, like, that information had been lost to Chastity and her family, but like maybe, so that is sort of an indication that there are creatures, wares, that are not rabid, that are perfectly civil and good people, good beings. So
And do they maybe need like a huntress or a fated mate to keep them from becoming rabid?
yeah.
Is that like, could that storyline go that way?
Yeah.
Now she did have like I think she said she was one of 14 kids. Like it was some
Yeah.
like super high number. So that would be interesting. I don't
Mhm.
know if they each got their own novella
Right.
and learn a little bit more to the backstory and the lore through each
Mhm.
novella. That would be an idea.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that a lot of romance series are set up that way, and that it's like a whole family, and then each book is a different person in that family. So I could totally see that the Adolfo family was the center for the next books.
Right. There's certainly enough siblings that it could go that way.
Yeah. So one other thing that I kind of thought was funny was that all of them had such interesting names.
Oh
That,
yeah, like valor and
yeah,
honesty. Yeah, like they all
there's
had
like
really like native.
prudence and victory and
Right.
chastity, and I was like, okay, justice.
Yeah,
Um,
I liked that. I did. I thought that was clever.
I thought it was clever, but also it was kind of like a smidgen. I don't want to say odd, but like I don't know. It just kind of cracks me up that like Chastity is our heroine, and she's like, "Bang me," and I'm like, "That's not very chaste."
You're not living up to your name very well.
Excuse me. Um, so speaking of chastity, what did you think of the steaminess and sexy parts?
I thought it was pretty steamy, and it sort of like got steamier in stages. They didn't immediately like jump each other's bones. That didn't
Right.
happen immediately. Like, first it was sort of like heavy kissing, and then the next time, well, then she tried to kill him, and then, then the next interaction, it got a little steamier, and then like by like the third time, it was like full blown. Because I don't know. This is my preference thing. I don't really like it like when immediately they're like, well, we've known each other 3 hours, we've talked to each other 2 times, like let's do this. So it was
Yeah.
like there was like at least a little bit of a progression there. So
Yeah.
I did like that. Yeah. At one
Uh,
point, I think one of the siblings was like, "Yeah, we saw you." I was like, "Ooh, curtains."
next time we'll make sure the curtains are closed. Yikes. Yeah, no, I would agree with that overall. I generally prefer, I mean, I don't mind if people, consenting adults go ahead and have sex earlier in the relationship, but I prefer a I kind of prefer it to sort of escalate physically proportionately with their emotions. I would actually really love to read a book where they are like, I mean, okay. The other thing is, I really also enjoy when the physical stuff starts to mean more because the emotions are present. But I always feel like even when we have a scenario where the characters have been intimate, whether or not it was like a one night stand or something kind of earlier in the book. And then I always feel like there's like a pulling back. Like that, like we had sex and it didn't mean anything, but like now that I'm having feelings, maybe it meant something. And it's like there always is like well, I know this is what we agreed. Like I know we agreed to friends with benefits, but like let's go on a date now. And they try to like pull back on that physical relationship and then build up on it again. And so I
Well, and that also
agree.
makes for like an interesting story too.
That's true. But I agree with you generally that I like to see a little bit of progression, at least, even if that progression is very short in page count. Like, I don't want it to be like, hey, your name's Larry? Okay, meet you in the bathroom in 5 minutes. Like, I'm like, okay. Can we at least have like a make out on the dance floor and then some grinding and then go to the bathroom? Like,
Right. Like I agree. I need those little bit like I need those clearly defined stages. I don't care if it goes super fast through those stages,
right.
but I need them.
So, was there something else you wanted to talk about?
So since we've talked about fairy tale retellings weeks ago, now I look for them in everything I read because I'm like, because once we read A Cowboy to Remember, and they said that was a Sleeping Beauty fairy tale retelling, and I didn't see that at all. I was like, So this time I was like, is this a modernized spin on Little Red Riding Hood? And I didn't read that anywhere else. Like I read Sleeping Beauty for the last book. but I don't know. I could see like with a little bit of twist, like a little bit of like a Buffy twist on it, like
Yeah.
that it's a modern feminist Little Red Riding Hood.
Yeah. I could see that. I hadn't thought of it about it until right now while you brought it up.
Well, I'm
Yeah,
telling you,
and
I look for these things now.
you what?
I look for these things now.
Oh, well, yeah. I think there was even a moment in the book where someone, I think when
On Halloween, she was dressed
yeah,
as a
she was
cupcake.
dressed up as like a red velvet cupcake, but she was like all in
Mhm.
red. And her sister was like, "What are you, Red Riding Hood?" And she was like, "No, I'm a red velvet cupcake. I just took my icing headband off." Um,
She worked in like a bakery coffee shop, so it made
right.
sense.
And
Yeah.
so like that worked out perfectly. But yeah, I think there was some hints to this. There was, the big
Lost
bad
in the
wolf,
woods. Yeah.
and he lived in the woods, and like he wasn't civil, and like he sometimes ate people, maybe. Um and I could see some of those parallels. So, she's not seeking out the wolf in the Little Red Riding Hood the way huntresses would, but the wolf has tracked her because in the story the wolf like gets a glimpse at her and then sneaks on ahead to grandmother's house. Um, I could definitely see these parallels. Yeah. Good eye, good catch.
Well, when you look for things and you find them, it doesn't necessarily mean they're there. But I'm looking.
I don't think this is too much of a stretch. I believe this more than I believed the Sleeping Beauty stuff.
Yeah, because I totally didn't. Even after I like read that and some of the reviews after I finished the book, I was like, no, I don't see that. Even if the author had come out and said, no, it is, I think I still would have been like, I'm not sure about that.
You're like, well, if you say so.
Right.
So this was a Halloween seasonal novella. Did you enjoy reading it this season? Do you feel like you actually read books seasonally?
I I kind of read whatever I want whenever I want, but I did enjoy like a good Halloween book this close to Halloween. And I'm already looking forward to like starting to get into some like winter Christmassy ones. I'm
Mhm.
looking for that. It was fun. It was perfect. It was just right.
Yeah.
Especially because they talk about the moon being full on Halloween, and we're gonna have a full moon this Halloween.
We are?
And yeah, I'm pretty sure, aren't we?
We are. Yeah, I just looked over at my calendar. We are.
Yeah. So it was pretty cool. There were some good parallels. It was like the perfect time to read it.
Yeah. Well, I hadn't realized that we were going to have a full moon on Halloween. This should have been the perfect. I saw this on the internet the other day. This should have been the perfect year. The Cinco de Mayo was on a Taco Tuesday. Like Christmas and New Year's are on a Friday to make it long weekends. Halloween is on a full moon and on a Saturday. Like there was like they listed out a ton of stuff like that where it was like everything was perfect, and then it was like, and then it was 2020,
And then we're stuck at home
and
again.
then COVID. But anyway, so I agree with your thoughts about seasonal reading. I kind of just read whatever I want whenever I want. And if this had come up, if I had been exactly where I am in Talia Hibbert's books and it was March, I would have been like, I'm reading Mating the Huntress. Ah! And I wouldn't have cared that it was Halloween.
Right.
But I do agree that there is, I do around this time of year tend to want to read spooky or thriller or like just a little bit of scary stuff, even though I'm a scaredy cat who does not like to read scary stuff. Um, so you said you would be interested in reading more paranormal romance?
Yes, definitely. And I like if you could suggest another good like Fated Mates, I would definitely pick that up.
Well, funny you should mention reading more paranormal romance. There's going to be a paranormal romance readathon the second week of November called Love in the Night, and I'm one of the co-hosts. So there's already been multiple people, there's been a ton of paranormal recommendation videos out there right now because this is just sort of the time for them. And there's also another paranormal romance readathon that's happening the week before ours for the first week of November. So I see so many recommendations out there floating around right now. I'm still sort of tweaking my TBR, but video coming soon. Uh, and I think that I could recommend a bunch, even off the top of my head, of Fated Mates stuff. So I will send you a list if you don't want to go watch those videos.
No, I'll watch them. You can forward me links, forward me just a list, forward me Goodreads. I don't care. Forward it to me, and I'll pick one
Okay, sounds good.
or two or three.
So overall, what would be your rating or takeaway, or what was like your favorite part of this book?
Well, we talked about how like there was little bits of humor interjected throughout the story, and there was a couple things, particularly from Luke, that I had highlighted on my book that I thought were particularly comical. So he's a grown man, like, or grown shifter, whatever we want to call him, and he's never had like sexual urges before, even though he's grown. So he talks a couple times, particularly in the beginning when he's sort of like stalking her as she's working in the cafe. Not stalking her, but creeping on her. I mean, she can see him, she knows he's there, but he is sort of like, there's a little creep factor going on there.
He's plotting how he will approach her and get this going.
Right. And I mean, even though like we assume he's lived in this town for a while, he's not very good with like human interactions, and he doesn't really fit in that well, we see. Like,
right.
So like one thing I highlighted was public erections were by all accounts considered inappropriate.
Yes.
And then just a few pages later, he says, just the other day, Luke had to Google how to ask a woman out without making her fear for her life, but the results hadn't been particularly helpful.
Yes, I highlighted that one too.
Oh, and then another one was he orders and eats 6 ham and cheese croissants, even though he wanted 20, but he thought 6 would be more normal. I'm like, I don't know. I think if somebody came into where I was working and ordered 6 ham and cheese croissants, I'd be like,
I mean, I wouldn't think that was weird, just because I'd be like, oh, well, especially if he left with them. If he sat down and ate all 6, I'd be like.
But he does. He sits down.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's like if someone comes in and orders 6, you might be like, okay, like he's getting breakfast for his office or whatever. Yeah. But like for him to then sit down and then eat them all, I'd be like, here's a refill on your coffee. One of the ones that I highlighted was I really liked, so Chastity sort of presents this this front to him. So over the course of the book, she wants to learn more information because their werewolf knowledge for her family has been lost. She is like, I'm not interested in Luke. Like, there's nothing here. I'm just like going to use him. That's what I'll accept his date, not because I'm interested, but because I want to like learn. This is research. I'm going to like spy. I'm going to go behind enemy lines. And then eventually they're like making out. And then she's like, nope, got to stab him. I'm going to use this chance to stab him. And the whole time he's just like, aw, my murderous little like, my mate, she's just so fierce. And I love that part. And I highlighted she wasn't shy at all, was she? The hesitation, the demure smiles and lowered lashes, it had all been a trap. She wasn't sweet or gentle or biddable. She was a bloodthirsty effing murderer. His heart sang. And there were just multiple moments like that where he was just like so pleased that she was like, so that she had like some oomph and fire to her. And I really like that part because I definitely have read other books where, I mean, Luke wasn't really like an alpha in that he was like, oh, I'm in charge, I'm the big man. But like, I've definitely read other books where, especially for like a wolf male, to be that kind of like dominating, like I'm on top, you're on bottom, like I'm in charge, you're subservient. Like, so I really enjoyed that Luke was just like, how precious. And like he was like proud of her. It wasn't just like, oh, look how weak and cute you are, you're trying. It was like,
I can eat you at any moment. Yeah
And so those are some of my favorite parts, is when Luke was cheering her on for her gumption, basically
for trying to kill him.
Yeah.
I kind of thought it was funny when she goes and tells her parents, who are these hunters and the parents of 14 hunters, that they're kind of like, they kind of have the whole were shifter thing wrong, and like she knows because she met one of them and went to his house a couple times, and they're like, oh, okay, like
yeah,
we've known and been living and doing is wrong. Okay.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a surprise to me too. Like Chastity comes clean, so she and Luke are getting it on and having a good old time, and then he's like, I want to mate you. And she, what?
I said bump chicka wow wow.
Yes. They are having a grand old time. She finishes, but before he can finish, he says, "I want to mate you," and it's like a bucket of cold water. She's like,
Yeah.
breaks, and to like give credit where credit is due, Luke is like, "Oh, you said stop, okay," and he stops, which I liked. So yay for listening to the women and you're listening to your partner. Consent is sexy, said my husband, shouting from the other room. Consent is sexy, yeah. So that was great. But then she basically immediately goes home and she feels very conflicted emotionally. She's realizing she's developed feelings for Luke, but like, how could this happen? And she is determined to, she knows she hurt him by pulling away from him. And so she is like trying to both come to grips with that, but also like, she kind of doesn't want it. She's been raised her whole life to be like anti-wear. So I felt like she went to her parents partly to kind of tell them the information she'd learned to help them out, because there are still like rabid wares that are dangerous and need to be taken care of. But also I felt like she felt guilty for hurting Luke. And so it was almost like a form of punishment for herself, where she was like, I'm going to sit and like tell my parents all of this, and then they will not allow me to like go back to him. But then like her parents are kind of like, well, this kind of makes a lot of sense. Like you have feelings for him, and they accept it so easily and readily that like, she presents his little acorn as like proof that he has a soul because he can create art. And they're like, that's pretty interesting. And they don't like, I felt like that part was too easy to like kind of like get over 50 years of like thinking that werewolves were one way and huntresses were the other way. I felt like that was like a little too easy, but otherwise I really enjoyed this whole book and this whole novella, and I felt like it was constructed really well, and I loved the humor. So I'm gonna go ahead and
really like top notch on the humor.
Yes, I think that is really a good line that Talia Hibbert walks, because I have found that both in Chloe Brown and Dani Brown's stories. So I definitely want to like read all of her backlist, and that is on my TBR going forward, because I like her writing so much. So we're gonna wrap it up.
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
I would say I'm gonna go ahead and rate this 5 stars. Like, I used to be like really stingy with my 5 stars. I used to be like, well, only like a couple books a year can get a 5 star. And now I'm like, no, you know what? If I really enjoyed it, and if I'm like gushing about it, and like I immediately want to call someone up, aka Nicole, and be like, you have to read this so that we can talk about it, to me that's a 5 star. So
yeah,
I'm gonna go ahead and give it 5 stars.
I was gonna give it 4.25.
Okay.
I really liked it. I know it was a novella, and I know that. I just wanted a little more background. Yeah. I want to know a little more why.
Yeah. I understand.
I totally recommend it to somebody who wants a quick read or a Halloween read. I would absolutely not hesitate to recommend it.
Yeah. And are you going to check out more by Talia Hibbert?
Yeah, I wish there was more in this. I mean, it was. I think I looked. It was written in 2018, so it could still be coming. That's only like 2 years ago, or maybe a year and a half ago. Who knows?
Right.
So maybe there is more coming. But I liked her style of writing. I liked her humor. I would definitely check out something else by her.
All right.
All right.
So I think that's everything we have to say about Mating the Huntress. We both really loved it, and Nicole's going to go read a whole bunch of paranormal romance recommendations. And we have not chosen our next book yet, but it is Nicole's choice because I picked this one. So thank you so much for joining me. And don't forget to check out Nicole. She is over at See Nicole Read. I don't know that See Sally Read is going to bring up anything, but it's Nicole. It's See Nicole Read. And she and I just recorded another cousin conversation, and she has a couple of our other conversations from some of our previous books. So don't forget to check her out. Thank you for watching this video. If you have Talia Hibbert recommendations, if you have Fated Mate recommendations, leave them down in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you next time.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, 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 bye.